the government's running deficits and cutting spending across the board. So where is this $25 billion going to come from?
Well, the first thing, I won't front run the Minister of Finance too much tomorrow. But there will be good news tomorrow with the spring update on the fiscal situation, the government's performance against our deficit targets, the government performance on getting spending under control, and the government's performance at the main time, and this has been core to our strategy, which is to spend less, get spending under control, so that Canada can invest more. And what today is about is ensuring that as Canada invests more, Canada as a country, the Canadian private sector, foreign investors in Canada, that all Canadians share in the benefits of that. We have ample resources in order to do so alongside. And remember, last point, and I'll hand back, is that there's a series, and this is what governments have done over the years, series of measures that governments are taking to create the possibility of these projects. We're doing that on a different scale now. And now we're making sure at the same time that all Canadians benefit.
Pretty long answer to a question of where are we getting the money from. Not really sure, but maybe in that early sort of run-up to the budget that we're all going to find about tomorrow, maybe there'll be some answers in there. So, Justine, what did you think of the announcement today? It's the first time that Canada's ever gone this way.
It is. I find it very interesting, and I'm interested also by Carney's response there, because it does sound like he's holding on to some good news. So I think we're all ready to have some good news in that spring fiscal update. The Sovereign Wealth Fund, very interesting idea. We know that Norway has something similar. Why is it interesting for Canada? For the same reason it's interesting for Norway, because both are oil and gas producing countries, and there's a tremendous amount of wealth and federal revenue that comes from that sector. Now, of course, efforts can be made to put in place an energy transition to go towards clean energy, electricity, which we're blessed to have in Quebec and so on. But the fact remains, we're still exploiting the oil sands. And as long as we're doing so, well, shouldn't all of Canada be able to benefit from that wealth in a more sustainable way than just simply running through it until it dries up? And this is what Norway has done with, I would say, tremendous success. I think one of the differences, though, is that in Norway, oil and gas revenues represent 30% of state revenues, whereas in Canada it's around 10%, which is still a lot. It's still a tremendous amount. So I'm very happy that finally this fund is being put in place. We're taking a model that works and we're applying it here in Canada. I think the Sovereign Wealth Fund will also, as Mark Carney has explained, be an opportunity for Canadians to invest and hopefully give a kickstart to some of those infrastructure projects that the government's been talking about.
By the way, that fiscal update, I think you're right. The hint, of course, is that the deficit, which is, now, of course, ballooned quite high, the surprise is going to be tomorrow that it's not as big as we thought, and maybe that's where some of this $25 billion gets to come from if that deficit is smaller than expected.
Well, it's going to have to come from somewhere, and we know that there's been a lot of pressure and a lot of promises made by the Liberal government to work on the deficit, on reducing the deficit, and also to reduce spending. So, it's not a very long time since the budget was adopted, but if they already have positive results to show, I'll take it.
So let me move on to another thing today, which is again related to the Prime Minister. This is a story from last week. This council being appointed for Canada-U.S. trade relations. I saw Jean Charest on Tout le monde en parle over the weekend. Yeah. He's part of this. What do you make of this? Because I see now as well that Mark Carney kind of went out of his way to meet with Claudia Sheinbaum. She's the president of Mexico, kind of doing a bit of an end around the U.S.
Yeah. What I'm seeing here, and I'm trying to look at the story behind the story, because what we mostly focus on is everything that comes out of President Trump's tweets. He's got some real irritants there as well. He's put in place some, Jameson Greer and Trade Secretary Howard Lutnick with a very strong America First agenda. So that's mostly what we hear is this kind of inflated rhetoric coming out of these spokespersons for trade. And these are the people that Canada's going to need to negotiate with ultimately. But what I'm encouraged by is I'm hoping that there are some, calmer calmer spirits that will prevail. And that's what Jean Charest represents to me, a man of course, tremendous experience. He's been through trade negotiations before. And just hearing him, as I think a lot of us tuned into that show on Tout le monde en parle, and we were able to hear him talking in a very calm way about the fact that Canada does have allies south of the border. We have allies in state governments. We have allies in cities. There are a lot of people for whom it's in their best interest that trade between Canada and the United States works. So that's what I'm hoping is going to prevail. We had also some encouraging news in that direction from the new ambassador to the United States, Mark Wiseman, who was saying we need to move beyond the bluster. And he's absolutely right about that.
You know, I kind of, in the back of my mind, I think if the U.S., or rather if Canada and Mexico, who have no reason not to get along, can put something together, that's kind of a unified front, isn't it, when CUSMA negotiations do resume?
It sure is. And, you know, the worst case scenario is that the trade agreement stays in place. It's not actually going to disintegrate and no longer hold. But I think that it is important to note that everything that Trump has done in terms of tariffs are in complete violation of that trade agreement.
Right.
So everything that's happened since on the Canadian side, on Mexico's side, is simply in reaction to what's already been, a sabotage, basically, on the part of Donald Trump. So I do think that Mexico and Canada can form a united front. Maybe that'll give them some more negotiating power. I'm very cheered and encouraged by, as I said, this consultative committee and cooler heads hopefully prevailing.
Justine, final topic. I just want to get your reaction to what happened Saturday night. Yet another assassination attempt on President Donald Trump. This at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Where were you? What was your reaction?
Of course, very, very concerned. I was thinking of the Charlie Kirk assassination, and of course, this isn't the first time that somebody has made an attempt on Donald Trump's life. For any politician, it's a concern because the politician's role is to put themselves out in front of the public, and you don't ever want a politician to feel that they can no longer do that. But there is a real security threat here, and a lot of that is being fed by this incredibly overblown rhetoric that we keep hearing from Trump. He is feeding into this kind of hate propaganda climate, and I'm hoping that this is going to be obviously they're going to need to put in place stronger security measures. He's already addressed that.
Right.
There were some comments about security. They're also looking at whether the president and vice president should both be present at the same event, or that's maybe not a good idea. But I do think that the incendiary language and the kind of overblown politics that we're all being confronted with is unfortunately feeding into that very dangerous environment.
Yeah, sad but true, right? And it seems to be making worse. It's almost like we've come to expect this now. That's the saddest part of this at all.
Yeah,
it almost didn't come as a huge surprise. Justine, thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much. I appreciate it.
I'm Luke Wilson. Join me each week for Film Never Lies. Since retiring from the NFL, I've had a lot on my mind, and now I've got my own show. So if you're tired of lazy takes, if you want honest conversations, join us each week. Film Never Lies, available on all TSN platforms and the iHeartRadio app.